The GoPro. Basic, simple, and beautiful. Just like my girlfriend. So this is a GoPro. It's a GoPro 4 Black Edition. This is the main GoPro that we use for everything that we're shooting. When GoPro first came out back in the day, I can't remember exactly how long it was, but I had bought the original GoPro. I was looking online and I was trying to find something that we could actually hook to a bike, a camera, to get a shot that no one had ever really seen before. And that was for our first video, our bike jump video. So I found out about GoPro. That's when I bought my first one. They're nothing now like they used to be. But this was a huge game changer once it came out, especially the original one. So our bike jump video, we did kind of all the shots we could with the Canon 5D Mark II, the Canon T2i at the time. Keep in mind, this is 6 years ago. And then this camera was used, the GoPro 1, was used for hooking on the bike and getting those shots that I think added, or I know added, a ton to the video. So it's all about showing different perspectives. This is always kind of our last camera resort, but it's always a camera we use. Now I think a really common question that we get asked is, what camera settings do you use? So before I get into that, let me just talk about the Black Edition compared to the Silver Edition, because there's a couple different options out there for people interested. We always go with the Black Edition, especially for the 4, because it can shoot 4K. And it can also do better slow motion. Those are the two things that we use all the time. Super slow motion and 4K. You can't do that with the Silver Edition. So in my opinion, it's worth the extra $100 if you're going that route. If you don't have a computer fast enough to handle 4K and super slow motion, it's probably not worth it. As far as the camera settings go, most of what we're shooting nowadays, if it's a 4K focused video, we always have it on 4K at 30 or 24. We're always exporting our videos at 24 frames per second because that looks more cinematic than straight up 4K at 30 frames per second. But it's always good to have the extra frame rate to have it a little bit smoother, and then we can slow that down while we're editing in Adobe Premiere. That's what we use as far as software goes. So for this camera, if I was shooting anything extreme sport wise, 4K at 24 to 30 frames per second, we'll usually go to 30 frames per second. And if we're shooting something where we're not sure if the athlete's going to be able to capture it because it's a complicated move, we'll normally not shoot that at 4K. We'll usually shoot that at 1440, which is the aspect ratio. So it's not so much widescreen, it's more kind of a square. So 1440 at 80 frames per second is what we'll shoot half of our stuff at. So it's kind of usually either one or the other as far as camera settings go. That one is awesome for capturing kind of all around, and it gives us freedom when we're editing in Premiere to actually move the image up or down and still have that extra room to get the shot that we want and frame it how we want to as far as composition goes. So that's why that setting's important to us, and I think it's a great option out there. And you can go in super slow motion, which always looks awesome as well. So those are the basic settings that we're using for the videos and the stories that we're telling. Now, from what I've learned with this camera doesn't do awesome if you're hooking it to something that is super kind of jittery. So we just recently hooked this to a RC car on gravel road that was super bumpy. Just looked at the footage, it's completely unusable. So it really only shines when it's on a smooth surface. Otherwise it has what's called the jello effect, and that's when essentially you kind of have kind of a, it's hard to explain, but it looks like jello. Like when you hit jello, it kind of does this kind of like wave. The same thing happens with GoPros when the camera is kind of bouncing all over the place. So just be mindful of that. And yeah, it's a great camera. It's a camera that we've gone through a lot of. We've probably gone through about 4 or 5, give or take, in all of our shoots. We've had one drop from a zip line. We've had a couple fall into a river. We recovered one of them, and not too long ago, a year ago, we actually dove at the bottom of a waterfall that we were filming at, and we found 3 GoPros. So they're cameras that you can lose, but you can also find. And yeah, it's kind of the future as far as it gives filmmakers that don't have a big budget an opportunity to use things for other things. And kind of what's cool is, like, you see these big Hollywood movies, and an example is The Martian. There's a lot of times in that movie where they actually use the GoPro to tell the story, and it was actually part of the story. You could actually see it in some of the shots. So it just interesting seeing such a small, cheaper camera as far as money goes in these big Hollywood budgets when they have the option to use these big cameras. But there's also a big part in storytelling with these simpler cameras. I feel more people can relate to these, and it's giving us filmmakers the opportunity to show a perspective that no one's really captured 10 years ago. They didn't even have the option to capture it 10 years ago. So this is a camera that I would strongly suggest. Now, there's so many other camera settings in here and so many other reasons to use other camera settings. Going into that, I could tell you a lot about that, but someone at GoPro actually did an awesome blog post on all the camera settings and why you use one over the other. Go check that out down below. It's going to be the first link down below. I would check that out if you want more insights on different camera settings with the GoPro. I'm just going over what we basically use for most of our shoots. There's always a couple of exceptions, but that's kind of the general idea with what we're doing with GoPro. As we always say, thanks for watching. Over and out.
Yeah, wham, bam, super tramp. And I tipping up my hat while I boost the fans. And I hover up top, can you feel the noise? All the girls scream now cause they want the boys. Yo, making all the clouds looking like a big joke. When I run so fast and I sing so low. And you never wanna mess with me, you're just dissing me. I just set me free, so just stop.